before he leaves, Omega says, like, I want to stay with you. That is a heartbreaking moment. Like, oh, that really got me.
Krypton to Alderaan. Krypton to Alderaan. Krypton to Alderaan. Krypton to Alderaan.
Welcome, everyone, to Krypton to Alderaan. I'm Joey, your Star Wars lover, and with me is Royish Goodlooks, your Star Wars song guy.
Hello, Joey. Hello, podcast.
Hello, and we're the podcast that analyzes nerdy pop culture, but it's mostly Star Wars, and this episode, we're continuing with our Bad Batch rewatch. We hope you're watching along. We've got Season 1, Episode 2, Cut and Run. We've also got The Rise of Fascism. We've got great poetry moments. We've got no fill or fluff, and we've got the foundation of some epic character development ready to go, so stay tuned. Here we go. Punch it.
Nailed it. Nailed that intro, Joey. I love it.
Woo!
It's almost like we didn't take a whole month off of podcasting.
Yeah, it's almost like we haven't done this almost 150 times.
This is episode 149, by the way.
Nice.
All right, Joey, it is well known that I am a Clone Wars noob, and I have to assume...
Very well known.
I have to assume that Cut is a character from the Clone Wars. I've seen a bunch of Clone Wars. I'm starting to see more and more as time goes on. I don't remember if I've seen him in any of the arcs that I've so far caught up on. So my question for you is, who is Cut?
You know what? So glad you asked, Royce. Love the question. Thank you. If you had seen Cut in any of the episodes of the Clone Wars that you've watched, you would remember.
Okay.
So Cut is a deserter, and we are introduced to him in the Clone Wars as a deserter. We don't see him like as a clone trooper or anything like that. He was in the Battle of Geonosis. He saw what happened at the Battle of Geonosis, and that caused him to like break away from the clones and desert the army.
Dude, pause the episode right now. I have to go see this. This sounds awesome. I love this so far.
They are great episodes of the Clone Wars when we are introduced to Cut. Rex is on Seleucami, and there's stuff going on Seleucami, and Rex meets Cut, and I believe Rex is injured. And anyway, he gets introduced to Cut, and he marks Cut as a deserter. And at that point in time, like, we are just kind of getting to know Rex. And so Rex is like, you are bad. You did a bad thing. Deserting is treason. I have to report you. I have to turn you in. You have to watch these episodes.
Wait, so Geonosis is like the beginning of the Clone Wars, right?
Way
like
at the beginning.
Attack of the Clones,
Yes.
Clone Wars,
Yes.
right? Crazy.
I don't think we actually see Cut in the Battle of Geonosis in Attack of the Clones, but his backstory is that he was in the Battle of Geonosis and saw what happened, and that caused him to desert. Cut sets up the theme, the thesis of the entire rest of the Clone Wars show, of the story. The question, like, what do soldiers do when there's no more war to fight? What's going to happen to us? Which is also what we see as I'm getting loud. We also see the fallout of that in this, like, throughout this show. So Cut sets that up very early on in the Clone Wars, and it like permeates and ripples through the Clone Wars, the Bad Batch, and even some of Rebels. He is an incredibly important part of these stories. I have to believe that after this episode, he and Sue and the kids go off and live happily ever after somewhere. Like, he did so much for us, the fans, the viewers, the audience, that similarly how I wanted the Batch to wind up on Pabu, I need to believe that Cut is out there. Actually, it would have been awesome to see them also wind up on Pabu, but just need to believe that they are out there in the galaxy somewhere safe and sound. He taught us so much, and he asked the questions that I then started like asking for the duration of the Clone Wars. And he did the same thing here for me. We'll get into like how you felt about his introduction to you here, but he also is asking those questions and setting up like the rest of the thesis of this show, like the reluctant father, what it's like to raise kids. You thought fighting in a war was hard? Wait till you are raising children, you know, that whole thing, which we then see Hunter grow from this moment in time. This exact moment in time, we see Hunter grow so much up to the epilogue at the end of the series finale of this show. So it's incredible that character, the Cut, has played such an integral part in the Clone Wars storyline and now the Bad Batch storyline.
Dude, I mean, you can just like roll all the other moments in time where I've said like, I'm missing out, dude, in the Clone Wars. Like that is so cool. And like here watching the Bad Batch, you pointing that out, it's like, oh, that makes this even meatier. I'm kind of glad that you're letting me know this now, and I can be excited to go back to those Clone Wars episodes. I'll report back next recording that we do. I just wrote down like a defector clone living his best life. Good for him, and raising his family, like, and being the model for Hunter. Yeah, I really loved, you mentioned like, okay, he should go off and live on his own. Like he says that literally to Hunter, like, hey, what are you going to do? I don't know, find a remote planet with some like nice piece of land. And it's like, yeah, Pabu. And Hunter's like, that's all you have to do?
That's the key to not being found?
That's the seed right there, right? So perfect.
Yeah, it's really, he did the same thing for Rex, right? He like, as we, the audience, or I guess I should say, as I, the audience member, started asking the questions based on our introduction to Cut in the Clone Wars, Rex also started asking those questions. And when Fives learns about the inhibitor chip and gets like gunned down because he's about to expose the Empire's or Palpatine's greatest secret about the inhibitor chips, like we see all of it progress to the point where at least a couple of times Rex says, we're soldiers, what do we do when there's no more war to fight, right? And that all comes from that moment with Cut. But yeah, more of the Bad Batch version, like Cut asking the questions of like what it means to be a father, and then also like how, like teaching Hunter how to go and hide, how to make a life for yourself outside of war. You know, he's saying Omega's not a soldier, man. She's a kid. I need to do what's best by my family. Like he's teaching Hunter a lot in these moments. Again, this is the power of the rewatch, right? Like going back and realizing that these are not fluff. These are not filler episodes. These are not like so much of the conversation early on in this show was like, there's episodes where nothing really happens, or they're fluff, or they're cameo. Like this could be counted as a cameo. It's a character we've seen before, but they're pivotal character development moments that, with having seen the rest of the show, mean so much now. Hunter obviously learned so much from Cut and Sue in these episodes that we can pay attention to going forward, that will inform our rewatch going forward.
Yeah.
I should say.
Yeah. Absolutely. Like, it's interesting though, because he doesn't quite accept the role. He's still the reluctant father. Like, he's seeing how Cut is interacting with the kids, like when Omega goes to get the ball or whatever, and he's like, she's not a soldier, like just give her a hug and tell her it'll be okay. And so he's like seeing the model there from Cut, but he wants to protect Omega, but wants to do it by giving her away. Like he doesn't want to accept that he's going to be the one to protect her. He wants to protect her by saying, Cut, you're already a better father than me. She should just go with you, right? So he doesn't really like accept the role throughout that episode. Omega runs off and it's just kind of like, well, you have to deal with her. Omega inserts herself into scenarios and it's like, now this is happening, you know? Now you're the father, like it or not. But I also appreciate Wrecker's saying like, oh, we can't leave without Omega. And she shows up. So it's not like only on Hunter to like accept the role. I feel like it's just a whole family sort of element there. But clearly Cut is modeling the behavior that Hunter needs to now learn and adopt. And yeah, it's nice to see. The
doctrine of Cut has always been, we need to be more than soldiers. You need to be more than a soldier. It's our right to be able to have a life more than just a soldier, more than just a number, right? Echo says it's ironic clones took names on so they didn't just have numbers, and now people are getting numbers with this chain code. So as we're seeing the rise of the fascist government here, we're also seeing Cut and the doctrine of Cut saying, you don't just have to be a soldier. You can be more than one thing. She's not a soldier. You can be a parent, you know, raise this kid. You thought war was hard, try raising this kid. This opens up so much with Hunter, with the idea of Hunter at this point. Like, he doesn't think he would do a good job. He doesn't think he is anything but a soldier. And Cut comes along and says, you can be more than a soldier. But I think what Hunter is doing here in this episode, honestly, and what happens in the next episode, is that these characters are kind of mirroring the dark side and the light side. So as fascism is rising right now, we're seeing the chain codes, we're seeing the Empire take away people's autonomy, people's decision-making, people's individuality. and giving them numbers and chain codes, we're seeing Hunter take away Omega's autonomy and choice and decision making in saying, he didn't even ask her and he didn't even tell her. He just said, Cut, take her with you when you go. I can't be her father. And he removed that choice from her. And by the end, he learns the lesson of that being bad. But for a moment in time, the fascist government empire storyline and Hunter's journey to fatherhood parallel each other in this episode. And it's something that I've never picked up on before, but was pretty interesting to watch. And that's what makes this such an important episode of this show. I will argue time and time again that every episode of this show is important and not fluff and not filler and not just cameo grabbing. But this moment in time of him being told you can be more than a soldier, you can be a father, and having his journey mirror the Empire's journey through this is an incredible way to tell this story.
Not only that, we don't see Omega talk to Cut and say can I leave? You can make up your own headcanon of how she was able to not get on the transport, right? But somehow she was able to exercise her own, willpower and rights there to just show up in the battle. So that's interesting. That kind of also plays along with it. She ultimately makes the decision on her own, whether or not it forces Hunter's hand or not, if he's comfortable with it or not. It kind of ends up negating that. When Hunter finally comes back to the battle, I feel like they wrote his character to be a little distraught in that moment. Before he leaves, Omega says, I want to stay with you. And that is a heartbreaking moment. That got me. I saw the episode a handful of times, and the first time I rewatched it, I was like, oh, that really got me.
But I want to stay with you.
So he's leaving, going back to the crew. They're having a firefight, and he's like, I'm going to get back into soldier mode, and he's fist fighting. He doesn't have his armor. He doesn't have a weapon. Rarely do we talk about the action on the show. We're talking about all this fluffy family stuff. Yeah. And he's punching the troopers. He grabs the blaster. He shoots one while the other's holding the blaster. Gets back into the fight, and he's moved on. He's cut himself off. I'm not going to be raising this kid. That's over. I'm back with a batch now.
Yeah, man, that fight scene is epic. When he just storms in and he jumps on one and knees the other in the face. The choreography is pretty awesome in that fight scene. And they're also this is before I have a headcanon about this, because I think it probably was just the way the writers and creators decided to take the story. But there gets to be a point in this story where they start using stun. And they're not using stun.
I've got a counter, Joey. We can start a spreadsheet if we want. Stun gun count so far is 1, and it's Tech 1 stun gun. I don't know if we'll be able to keep this up or not, but he goes straight up blaster fire there. Yeah. Well, my headcanon is that they are also starting to realize that it's not the clones' fault. It's the chips. As they become more of a family, brotherhood means more to them. They were always so separated from the regs, and the regs treated them so differently. But they're learning now how to be a family, outside of just the core 4 or 5 of them. It starts to mean more on top of the fact that, it's not the clones' fault. They're learning more about the inhibitor chips, right? So I think there's a couple of cool things there where, they were hunted, so they were taking the action of we have to get them before they get us kind of thing, to what we see eventually in a couple of episodes from now of them mostly using stun gun. Right. I love that.
But I do think there's also a transition here of, you're saying, we see Sue ask Omega if she's ready to get on the transport. And the next thing we know, Omega's back at the Marauder, wanting to get on the ship with her family. So we don't know what went down. We don't know if Cut and Sue were yeah, it's your decision. You can go, or however that worked. But we do see Omega show up. And this is also, I think, the transition of seeing Omega become more of the adult in the relationship. In a couple of episodes from now, we're also going to learn that Omega is older than the rest of the members of the Bad Batch. And so it's interesting to now see her kind of bringing some very mature moments up to Hunter. I know I made a mistake, but you don't have to get rid of me. I left Kamino with you. That was my choice. She actually says, I know I've made a mistake and I have a lot to learn. And then Hunter says, you know what, kid? I also have a lot to learn.
Tell you the truth, kid, I guess I've got a lot to learn too.
Which is the first in a series of him repeating her sentiments back to him. We see like Omega in the first episode, we see Omega like mirroring
Halt.
Hunter
Everybody halt.
when he's
Yeah.
doing stuff.
Yeah. Love it.
And like doing the tracking stuff. But we've never talked about like Hunter mirroring Omega and learning from Omega. And in this episode, he echoes her sentiment, and at the end of the next episode, he does the same exact thing. And so there's so much to pick up on here, dude. On the rewatch, everyone, please to take this seriously, go rewatch this show because there's a lot. There's just a lot, and it's so easy to sit there and watch this show, this animated show, and say, yeah, I mean, sure. There was action. We're seeing the rise of the Empire, but, you know, we get cut. We saw him in the Clone Wars. But if you dig down, if you just like dig down a little bit, you see these themes emerge that are just like so important and so beautiful. And like you're saying, like this was a heavily emotional episode of the show. So many like very emotional moments when Omega is rescued from the creature. And like Hunter's like, what have you done? What were you thinking? Calm down. She's not a soldier. All that stuff. To this moment at the end of her being like, listen, I know I made a mistake, but you don't have to like get rid of me. I chose to be with you. It's very special. It's very heartfelt and it's very important.
Yeah.
And I love this journey, man. I love that we're going on this journey.
Dude, that's a great point about Hunter mirroring Omega's behavior or her language 100%. I also have something to learn here because that's what they do all along with Omega is she's looking up to Hunter and like pretending to be Hunter. She's Hunter, you know, mini Hunter, right?
Yep.
And that's beautiful that Hunter flips it, especially that I'm saying like he's not accepting his role. Well, he kind of does there. You know, he steps out of like his leadership role there to admit like, you know what, I've got some room for growth too. Yeah, that's amazing. I love all this. But like, we got to give some love to Tech, man. I miss Tech. You know, Omega brings up that everyone has the inhibitor chip that nobody knew, right? And Tech's like, how else did you think it works? Of course it was that.
You said the regs were programmed, but you never mentioned the chip. How else did you think it worked?
And then they're like, can you help us like make fake inhibitor or fake chain codes? Yeah, of course I can. I only heard of them moments ago, but of course I can. Like, I didn't realize how much I missed Tech as well within this. And like, we talked a lot about comic relief last episode with like Wrecker or whatever, and Tech was perfect for that here. I loved all these family moments, but like Tech also had a lot of cool interjections here that reminded me like, man, he is an awesome character, his wit, his curiosity, the comic relief, and even like this idea of Omega picking up on Hunter's skills when she's on the ship. She's like, oh yeah, that's a good plan. And she's looking over Tech's shoulder while he's programming the chips, you know? And of course she steals the chips to bring them out. And yeah, Omega is like eager to help. She like really wants to be a part of the team and like work with them. Like she's not just like a kid that's like, maybe Hunter is looking at it that way. Like this is going to be a burden. It's going to be hard to raise a kid. But she's not like, she is a kid that she doesn't know everything. She's got to grow up, but she's so capable, right? And eager and like she'll maybe make mistakes, but there's some quote, I forget what it is, that they're like, that's going to complicate it. Omega's here, like that's going to ruin the plan.
So much for simple.
Yeah.
I think it's a good plan, Tech.
So much for simple.
Because Echo in these episodes is such a grump. I think we've talked about this before. I love Echo, but he's such a grump. He's like just not happy with any decision that's being made, and always, because he wants everything to be by the book. That's why his name is Echo. You probably haven't seen those episodes of the Clone Wars, Royce, but they give him the name Echo because he's always echoing the orders. Like he is the good soldier who follows orders. He wants everything by the book. The Bad Batch doesn't work that way, obviously. So he's like, so much for simple. But this is also like, we have that sibling dynamic that we talked about last episode in this one between Echo and Tech, of being like, yeah, how did you think it worked? Or Echo's like fed up with Tech when they're on the Marauder and he's got the chain codes. The clone troopers are approaching and Tech is like, we can't get caught with these chain codes. And Echo's like, we can't get caught at all. What are you talking about? There's moments like that, which are just so perfect. And the reaction that like most of us would have to Tech saying, well, we can't get caught with the chain codes. It's like, we're wanted people. We can't get caught at all, right? It's so good. It is great to have that comic relief that's so well done in this show.
All right, so we talked about a bunch of little moments from the episode plot-wise. Let's talk a little bit just about the production. We have to. It's in my contract. We have to talk about the production of the episode. When they step off the ship, like very beginning, it's super bright. They obviously want to show that Omega's like, whoa, like the sunlight's washing over her sort of thing. There's this like the dust maybe from the ship having landed. The dust is like settling. I remember my first time seeing that, watching the series and thinking like, wow, this is incredible the way this looks. Like, the dust, like it's a stupid thing, but like in the animation being like, yeah, this feels like an environment, like an ambiance they're creating. And same thing with the lighting. This time watching it through, I still love the visual and how it plays thematically for the episode. But yeah, I was like, it's kind of like we mentioned in our last podcast. It didn't feel the same way initially, but yeah, I'm wondering if you have any further follow-up thoughts on that. The way like the dust is settling, she picks up the dirt's falling down. Also, great dialogue of, this is amazing, dirt's amazing.
Yeah.
Right, everyone else is just shrugging that off. What are you talking about? Like, you're nuts here. But yeah, a lot of like almost harsh lighting, I would say at times. That maybe they wanted the juxtaposition that the beginning of the episode's really bright. And then, of course, it goes dark when things go wrong later on in the episode. Classic kind of like storytelling, like the sun goes down and then the battle begins, whatnot. But it's really bright and almost like washed out and glary and whatnot. So, yeah, I don't want to beat up on it because we know like it was incredible the first time I saw it. It gets even better by the third season. What are you thinking?
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff in that I love. I do like love it when the ship's coming down and the dust is going up and when she's like playing with the dirt. It's another great Tech line. She's like, what is this? And Tech is like, that would be dirt. And that's just perfect. And it's also like a great, I love that scene in The Force Awakens when Rey says, I didn't know there was so much green in the whole galaxy. It's very much like poetry moment to that, which I just love. And seeing someone experience that kind of stuff for the first time is just incredible. So I love all of that. Production-wise, yeah, I mean, I notice it so much more when it's brightly lit. Right? Like how much it improves later, and it's still great now. There was a lot of that in a juxtaposition between like Hunter and Wrecker and Cut and Sue being in the daylight, and then Tech and Echo being on the ship in the dark, and it going back and forth between those two things where made it like kind of obvious how much it, I guess, changes for the better in the future is the best way to say it. But there's also when the Nexu is, when I think it's a Nexu, when Omega goes out beyond the fence and the Nexu, or whatever that creature is approaching, there's also like dust coming up from its footsteps there, which I thought was a great little touch, right?
Yeah, that's what's making this series kind of stand apart. Like I said, the first time I watched it, it was maybe more impactful, right? Second time through, I'm like, I'm seeing the pixel, whatever BS. But they definitely took the time, like you're saying, the footsteps, like to add those elements that make you feel like you're in a world. And that's what's so special about Star Wars is when you get like, you get sucked into it and it's like, this is real, And so interesting to go back and see how maybe somebody got a brand new dust plugin, that they were like experimenting with, seeing how far they can go with it, or the lighting, like, and maybe the lighting with the dust, like, again, I will probably say this every episode, give us the behind the scenes gallery for animation.
100%.
And like shine some light on this dust, for me. I'd appreciate that.
That's so funny. That's very good. Yeah, I would agree. Another thing I would love to see in this behind the scenes stuff is a conversation about Kyner's music, because yet again, Kyner's music takes it away in this episode. And the way we get Omega's themes sprinkled over like important and emotional moments in this episode is just so good. When Cut and Hunter are having a conversation about like, wait till you learn about raising kids, and the kids are out playing ball, and Omega's like, I caught it, or something. Like Hunter looks over and smiles, and Omega's theme is filtered in there. And it's such a special moment. It's so good, and it's such a beautiful theme. And that's really, I guess, the only music I paid attention to in this episode.
Yeah.
Because it's just wonderful.
Yeah, that intro scene was the one that stuck out the most to me. I don't have like little motifs throughout that I should probably rewatch again and think about, but that intro scene, they come out swinging with Omega's with the light, you know, and that pairs well together. Yeah, Kiner's knocking it out of the park. I think on the next episode that we're going to review, I got a little bit more to say about music, maybe you too. But yeah, we'll try to keep filtering that into these reviews as we go along. There's so much to cover in just a 20-minute episode. We talked longer on the pod than the episode itself, so we're success in our own runtime here. Listeners, we'd love to keep this conversation going. Leave your comments here on YouTube. We'd love to hear from you, and make sure to subscribe and tune in for more nerdy pop culture, but mostly Star Wars. Thanks for listening to the show today. I've been Royce.
I've been Cut LaQuain.
And we've been Krypton to
Sigma.